Is it really okay for me to quit? I asked my boss in front of me, looking for confirmation.
I'd rather you leave as soon as possible, while the severance I have to pay you is still minimal.
My younger female boss added insult to injury. Her words sent me on my way home. After this, the company was going to be in big trouble. This female boss couldn't have foreseen that. My name is Michael Thompson. 55 years old. Divorced and joined this company as a mid-career hire. I've been here for 30 years. Less than 5 years to retirement, but still just a so-called sidelined employee. Haven't seen my kids in over 30 years. My ex-wife didn't want them to see me. There were disputes at the time, but now, well, it is what it is. As a parent, I wanted to at least pay child support, which ended when my child came of age. I don't have any special plans to spend money on now. Never been career-driven. I now appreciate being able to work at my own pace every day. My hobbies are fishing and playing golf. Often going alone on my days off, I've made friends and shared stories with people I meet along the way. One of them owns a boat and sometimes takes me out to sea, while another, a farmer, gives me fresh vegetables from his garden. No family, but no time to feel lonely with the social life I've built. I'm quite fond of this easygoing lifestyle. One day, as I arrived at work, everything was in a flurry. What's going on? I asked a younger colleague sitting next to me.
It's a sudden inspection from headquarters.
Oh, I see. That's where everyone's bustling around. Just show them how it normally is. I chuckled and settled down to start my work. Inspections had come suddenly before, but never caused any real issues. The ones tidying up were usually the messy ones. A little daily organization, and they wouldn't have to panic like this. It took me years to learn that, though. A few hours later, the inspector from headquarters arrived. She was young, but seemed to be a manager. She must be quite capable, I thought as I watched her greet everyone.
Nice to meet you. I'm from headquarters, Julia. Today, I just want to see how everyone's working. Please carry on as usual.
We all nodded slightly and resumed our normal duties. She was pretty. The younger male employees seemed a bit distracted, which made me smile.
What does this mean?
The new manager, Julia, went around asking questions and sometimes smiling during her inspection. But then she came to me.
What is this part-timer doing right now?
She was addressing me. I'm a full-time employee. I responded with a forced smile.
My apologies. Are you a supervisor?
She asked, smiling slightly. No, just a regular employee. Well, as for my current task. Just as I was about to explain.
What?
Her tone changed suddenly. I looked up at the sound of her voice.
A regular employee? At your age?
Her words were sharp. And she seemed angry, making me feel uneasy. Yeah, I'm just not much into climbing the corporate ladder. I stammered in response, and she burst into laughter.
Or is it just because you can't do the job? Incompetent and outdated, you're fired as of today. Don't bother coming back tomorrow.
She spat out those words at me. Not just me, but the surrounding employees were also shocked, mouths agape.
We can't afford to pay people who aren't contributing. It's necessary for cost cutting. There are plenty who can replace you.
It finally hit me that I was being insulted, and I clenched my fists in anger. She was undoubtedly talented, but that's no excuse to belittle others. Angered, I stood up and said to her, "Is it really okay for me to leave, then?" I asked Julia in front of me for confirmation.
I'd actually prefer you to leave now to save on the severance pay. The sooner, the better.
She said with a satisfied smirk, further insulting me. I no longer felt like working. I was told to leave, after all. It wouldn't count as an absence. So I grabbed my bag and left the company. As I left the department, everyone tried to stop me, but nobody could say anything in front of Julia. Even though my direct boss outranked her, nobody defies headquarters staff, a tradition in this company. Without a word from my boss, I walked home alone. The next day was Saturday, and the company was originally closed. Thinking about what to do for Monday, I decided not to waste the holiday fretting and went fishing instead. I'd take my time and think while doing something I love. Fishing is the perfect hobby for that. I headed out early in the morning. It's my favorite fishing spot. Despite my mood, the sea was calm today, promising a good catch for some fine fish marinade and drinks later tonight. With that thought, I cast my line.
Hey, I was wondering if you'd be here today.
Someone called out to me. Andrew. It was my fishing buddy, Andrew. We met here. He's a decade older than me but has always been a great friend, taking care of me and listening to my life stories.
Any luck with the fish today?
The sea's calm. I thought it would be a good haul, but it's not going as expected. I replied, opening my tackle box. And I showed just one fish. Andrew chuckled.
Just take it easy.
He said, setting up his gear a little away from me. Clouds drifted slowly. The same fishing scene as always, yet my mood was unusually somber, probably because of yesterday's events.
What's wrong? You look down today.
Andrew chuckled. I chuckled at his words. Andrew, I owe you an apology.
What for?
Then I began to speak in bits and pieces. Actually, there was an inspection from headquarters last Friday. I met a manager there for the first time, and she seemed to take an instant dislike to me. I said, laughing awkwardly to hide my embarrassment. She told me I didn't need to come back. I was so angry that I just left. I might end up getting fired. After all the talks we've had and the encouragement you've given me, I'm sorry.
Yo, you don't have to apologize to me.
Andrew said, then fell silent, staring at the bobber in the sea, occasionally sighing deeply as if deep in thought. I'd rather live a laid-back life than climb the corporate ladder, but it seems that the ambitious youth can't stand that attitude. Relationships are harder than work, aren't they? As I said this thoughtfully, Andrew spoke.
Well, I can understand the manager's point of view to some extent, but it's wrong to talk about firing unfairly, and a boss should understand the feelings and situations of their subordinates. That manager lacks that understanding. People who climb to the top with just their brains and grades often get it wrong.
I thought, just as expected of Andrew. He said that and got angry, even caring about me. Talking to him made me feel much better. It's amazing how talking to someone can make such a difference. I thanked Enru and managed to switch gears. After that, as if by magic, I started catching fish. Perhaps the fish didn't want to come near me when I was emitting a gloomy aura. I headed home with a much heavier cooler, thinking this to myself. 2 days later, despite it being Monday, I was at home. Even though I had been practically kicked out, I was debating whether to go. Enru, whom I had met on Saturday, gave me some advice.
The company is all about the people. Don't offer yourself to the company. Just take a break until they come to you, apologizing. You've always worked hard, right? You must have a lot of vacation days saved up.
Indeed, I had never used any, so I should have a few days' worth. Maybe it's a good time for a trip. As I pondered this, enjoying a leisurely morning for the first time in years, I decided to make some coffee and have a late breakfast. Then my phone rang. It was the ringtone for a call. This screen showed the name of my department at the company. What could it be? I had already told my boss I would be using some paid time off. Hello. Right after I answered, I heard my boss's frantic voice.
Michael, come to the office right now.
Why? I've already told you I'm using my paid time off. I responded. But my boss persisted.
Just come, please. There's a big mess. Our biggest client said they'll cancel all their contracts if you're fired. We need to go and plead to keep the contract going.
I snorted. Why should I be the one to apologize? You saw what happened the other day, right? Julia told me I was fired and to go home. If she doesn't admit her fault and apologize before my vacation is up, I'll have nothing to do with the company anymore. So, I don't care about the future contracts. With that, I sipped my coffee.
Don't say that. I know how hard you've worked. That should be enough.
I appreciate your words, but no matter if Julia is a higher-up and I'm just a rank-and-file employee, it doesn't give her the right to be rude. You understand, right? Please, consider this within the company. I hung up the phone after saying that. I had somewhat anticipated this might happen. But for Julia, it must have been a bolt from the blue. I might have caused trouble for everyone at the branch. But the words Enru said, "Don't offer yourself to the company," stuck with me. Then it was that evening. My cell phone rang with a call from headquarters. Probably her, Julia, on the other end. I might be insulted again. Thinking this, I cleared my throat and answered. Hello.
Hello, this is Julia from headquarters. Is this Michael's cell?
Yes, what do you want? I replied coldly, and she lowered her voice to say,
I'm truly sorry for the rude things I said the other day. I was hoping you would allow me the opportunity to apologize, so I called.
She didn't sound as confident and assertive as before. Probably her behavior towards me during the inspection got out to headquarters, and she must have been reprimanded. Okay. I figured listening to what she had to say couldn't hurt. She asked to meet at a restaurant, one of our company's clients, and preferred it if I could come that night, saying she wanted to apologize as soon as possible. I got there before her. not expecting to have a meal together like this, but guessing it was necessary to win back that big contract. I could sense the company's desperation.
Sorry for being late.
Julia said as she entered the room, and we sat down across from each other.
I'm sorry for calling you out today.
Looking like she might cry any moment. Feeling a bit sorry for her, I smiled and said, I've already understood your feelings, Julia. I came here to forgive, but I thought your views were too biased. I'm not in a position to preach, but I wanted to hear you out. Encouraged by my words, she began to speak.
Actually, I was raised by a single mother who was very strict. Being at a disadvantage as a single parent, she instilled in me that I must not lose to anyone, man or woman, whether it's in spirit or grades. She believed I needed to study hard, join a reputable company, and climb the corporate ladder. And I think that mindset is necessary to survive in society.
She said this without even touching her meal. I nodded. That's not wrong, and it's quite admirable, actually.
Thank you.
And I gave her a reassuring smile. Julia continued, a bit relieved.
So, maybe I've been unknowingly imposing my "I've worked so hard" attitude on others.
And that's why someone like me, who hasn't climbed very high, got targeted. I laughed in understanding, and she seemed to shrink in apology. I had no intention of blaming her anymore. She must have been struggling in her own way. I then encouraged her to start eating, noticing she hadn't yet. She seemed apologetic, but I figured she'd be hungry after work. We both began to eat. It had been a while since I shared a meal like this with someone, and I thought about it leisurely. But I was the only one feeling relaxed. She still seemed down. Well, the company doesn't run on bosses alone. You're still young. It's good you've realized this now, I said, trying to cheer her up. Finally, Julia seemed to truly relax.
Thank you.
After she spoke to me, she started eating her meal. Her mother must have been desperate to make her successful. She seems to be a well-mannered lady. Then we chatted about trivial things. Not having gone to college myself, I listened to her college stories and asked about the headquarters. The awkwardness dissolved, and we enjoyed our meal. During the conversation, she asked me,
By the way, why did Andrew, the president of the main contractor, say he would cancel the contract if you weren't there?
I laughed. Oh, Andrew is a fishing buddy of mine. We met by chance, got along well, and I talked earnestly about work. That's why he did business with us. Not just because we're good friends, but because he was convinced by my proposals. Her eyes widened in surprise.
And you landed such a big contract.
She fell silent, understanding the implication. Despite securing such a big deal, why hadn't I climbed up the ranks? I really had no desire for promotion, I said with a smile, which made her smile back. Well, there's a point person for Andrew's company, but direct requests often come to me. He knows I'm diligent and trusts me as a business partner, so we've maintained a good relationship.
That's how it was. You've really been the backbone of the company, and I've been.
So don't worry about it anymore. She's not a bad person, after all. Being a manager at her age must have required considerable effort. Julia seemed to feel ashamed for having thought that I contributed nothing to the company just based on appearances and outcomes. If you've learned from this, all you need to do is keep at it. I'm already 55 and nearing retirement. I don't have a family, so I don't plan on climbing any higher. But I think your approach isn't wrong. Keep up the good work. I encouraged her again. And she looked up.
No family?
Right. I have nothing particular to protect, so I plan to live my life carefree from here on out. She responded with a kind smile, perhaps thinking there's a different way to live life after hearing about mine. I decided to continue working hard to ensure the company would be a place where Julia and the youngsters could thrive after my retirement. Then I cut short my leave and returned to work. Everyone in my department was relieved to see me. When they started to badmouth Julia, I told them, "We've made peace. I heard her side of the story. We're all colleagues here. Let's stop attacking each other." I was grateful they spoke up for me, but gossip breeds more gossip. Everyone agreed with my words, and we were able to return to our normal work environment and thankfully resume our tasks. A few months later, as I was enjoying my usual pleasant days at work and fishing with Andrew and other friends on weekends, a rumor reached my ears.
Julia, the manager, is said to have fudged her performance for a promotion and might face a disciplinary meeting.
I was surprised. A disciplinary meeting. That could mean demotion, a pay cut, or at worst, disciplinary action. I couldn't believe Julia would do such a thing. That day, we talked about many things, including her struggles and hard work. I didn't see any lies in her expression as she talked about her efforts and the challenges in her job. Of course, if the wrongdoing is real, she should be properly punished and reflect on her actions. But if it's a wrongful accusation, it would be too pitiful. If there's even a slight chance of an unjust charge, I wanted to help clear her name. After that incident, I couldn't think of her as a stranger. Of course, the HR department must have already investigated what I was looking into. Still, I reviewed the documents she created and the transaction records I heard about. Among them were documents from a company where one of my golf buddies serves as a director or executive. I contacted various people and was informed that there was no fraud in her transactions. In fact, everyone unanimously said,
Julia really worked hard.
So, I conveyed this to HR. The HR director is my peer. Though we call each other peers, I was hired mid-career, so he's actually younger than me, but we go way back.
If Michael says so, it must be right.
He trusted my word. Later, it turned out that the rumor was spread by one of her envious subordinates who was older than her. It's astonishing how low-level people exist everywhere. They ended up getting suspended. A few days later, Julia returned to our department.
Michael, can I have a word?
She called me out, and I followed her into a separate room, feeling a bit nervous. She said,
Thank you for what you did the other day. I heard from the HR director that you cleared my name. I appreciate it.
And she expressed her appreciation deeply. I said, It was nothing. I couldn't believe you would do something like that. I just happened to have a little chat because the director is an old acquaintance. I was laughing, but my heart was pounding. Still, I had to say it. Can I ask you something? I said to Julia, who looked at me curiously. I've been looking into your documents, and it was the first time I learned your name. I looked down, too nervous to face her.
Ah. Oh, my name. It's Julia Williams.
She said. I gathered my courage and spoke my mind. Actually, my ex-wife's maiden name was Williams, and I have a daughter named Julia whom I haven't seen since she was 2.
What?
Julia froze for a moment, then exclaimed in shock. I finally looked up, scratching my head. I mean, I'm sure it's a coincidence, but I thought, maybe. Tears filled her wide eyes as she stared at me intently. I looked into her eyes, waiting for her words.
Michael. Thompson is my father's name. I learned it when I first got my birth certificate.
At that, I was dumbfounded. It's me. I muttered naturally. Tears involuntarily fell from my eyes. Upon hearing my words, Julia cried out like a child and clung to me tightly. I hesitantly wrapped my arms around her back. The last time I held her was when she was 2 years old. Seeing her grown up so much without my knowledge brought back stories of her efforts, and I teared up again. Is your mom doing well? I asked, and she nodded happily. I truly wanted to express my gratitude to my ex-wife for raising such a wonderful daughter. I never imagined reuniting in this way. I thought I had no family left, yet here she was, so close, still unbelievable to me. I believe that due to the people I've met and my diligent efforts, I've finally been able to do something meaningful for my daughter. It reaffirms my belief in the importance of trust and relationships. If you work earnestly, the day will come when your efforts are rewarded, and it may become a tool to help yourself and your loved ones unexpectedly. And then, there's me, without a desire for promotion, and my daughter, with her high aspirations. Though our wishes differ, our dedication to the company is sincere. That's why we should both continue to live honestly according to our beliefs. I want to live a relaxed life rather than climb the corporate ladder, but at the very least, I want to work earnestly until the end and leave some retirement money for my daughter. Respecting her feelings, I want to support her career ambitions wholeheartedly without denial. This way, I'm sure both my daughter and I will find happiness.
You and your wife stick out like sore thumbs.
Today we're celebrating the 30th anniversary party for the Prime Contractor Company. Bob, the department head at the Prime Contractor Company, saw right through me in this out-of-place atmosphere and relentlessly mocked me. As I, being timid, couldn't talk back and remained silent, my wife Hazel, standing right beside me, grabbed Bob by the chest and confronted him aggressively. Hazel boasts, undeterred, while Bob continues to look down on us, as I worry that Hazel, infuriated by Bob's attitude, might do something outrageous. She pulled out an envelope from her bag. Bob had been smug without even looking inside. But the next day, he completely changed his demeanor and kept apologizing to us. Afterward, when Bob realized who I really was, he looked utterly deflated, as if all his strength had drained away, and seemed so disheartened that a gust of wind could have blown him away. It's true what they say about the right person for the right job. I realized that things can change significantly depending on one's position. My name is Ray Charles, though ironically, despite my name suggesting sunlight, I've always preferred a role behind the scenes. At 48, I find myself in a position far from that world, running a company, having married Hazel, And since her family owns the business, I ended up joining her family's company. The company I took over as CEO mainly handles interior construction as a subcontractor. Being the head of a family-owned business that's been around for over 50 years was a heavy load to bear, and I felt it was more than I could match. But I stepped up to meet the expectations from my father-in-law. Since becoming CEO, I've been successfully expanding our branches, striving for management that's well-loved as community-focused, and fighting hard every day, having many long-term business relationships, taking over this company that has been in my wife's family since her grandfather. I sometimes felt overwhelmed by the weight of carrying both the family and the company's history. Yet, being trusted by many businesses and playing an essential, behind-the-scenes role has given me a sense of fulfillment and pride in my work. Our main client, a construction company, has a large contract volume and a strong relationship with us. Since the early days of the construction company's inception, they've been using our services as a subcontractor, fostering a comrades-in-arms relationship where we've been helping each other out. That's a well-known big corporation with numerous companies under its umbrella, expanding its business not only statewide, but also venturing beyond state borders. The company name, often heard in TV commercials, is well known, and I doubt there is a local who hasn't heard of it. I've heard that Mr. Norman Rockwell, who was a division head at our headquarters, had a long friendship with my wife's grandfather, the founder, and they were close friends. Now, with Norman retiring, a younger employee from within has been promoted to take over. His name is Bob Brown. At 38, he's skilled enough to be a division head at a major construction company. At first, I thought he must be competent and came with high expectations.
Ray, I'll be in charge from now on. So let's keep up the good work, okay?
I felt uneasy about Bob's overly casual approach. But since he was the manager of a long-standing business partner, I suppressed my feelings and didn't object. However, that might have been a mistake. Bob's attitude became increasingly arrogant, and before I knew it, he started talking down to me, giving orders.
Hey, Ray, about that estimate from the other day, that just won't do. We've been working together for a long time, right? So you get it, don't you?
His attitude of pushing unreasonable demands and easily dismissing our requests was infuriating. With Norman gone, I had no one to consult, and I could only offer small resistance without upsetting Bob too much.
Huh? Who do you think you're talking to? Don't get cocky. We're using your company as a subcontractor. Remember that.
I was disgusted by Bob's arrogant attitude of looking down on subcontractors just because he's the prime contractor, and I found myself wanting to cut ties and start fresh if possible. Then, a major ordering mistake was discovered in a public project undertaken by the prime contractor company, leading to a huge loss for my company. The prime construction company suffered significant damages, but as a subcontractor, my company avoided losses by allocating resources elsewhere. Feeling relieved that we managed to get by, I was then bombarded with an enormous complaint from an infuriated Bob.
Hey, what are you going to do about this? We've taken a huge loss on the public project we undertook together. How are you planning to take responsibility?
I mean, our company was able to avoid losses through other contracts. So technically, it shouldn't have resulted in a big loss for either of us.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Upon reviewing the construction estimate again, I noticed Bob's name as the person in charge, and there were revisions made to the amount received for the public project. But there are many inconsistencies in the written details. There were surprising additional budgets scattered throughout, making me suspect embezzlement. Isn't this quite different from the original plan to begin with? There's no way to handle this.
Cut it out. This is gonna make me look bad. Your company needs to take responsibility and cover the losses.
Bob, raising his voice, blurted out these one-sided demands and hung up abruptly. Fed up with Bob's tyrannical behavior, I reached my breaking point and consulted Hazel.
Well, but that company has been a partner since my grandfather's time, and things might return to normal once Bob's gone.
With a sigh and a troubled expression, Hazel's words left me sighing too, enduring the situation, thinking it's just for now. Mistakes caused by Bob kept surfacing, and every time I tried to clarify, somehow the blame was twisted to fall on me, with no ground gained in discussions. Then, one day after such continued occurrences, I was invited to that construction company's anniversary party. I was invited to the event not by Bob, but by an acquaintance. That company was reaching a major milestone with its 30th anniversary, and it seemed like they were planning to overhaul the board of directors, including the CEO. With a change in leadership, the company's policies are bound to change too. That would likely mean the end of my troubles with Bob. With that hope, Hazel and I headed to the party venue. The place, filled with branch managers and other executives from various regions, was wrapped in an extravagant atmosphere, making me, feeling out of place, shrink back while I was nervously looking around. Bob, acting like he owned the place, approached me. Seeing me acting suspiciously nervous, he started berating me from a position of superiority.
Why is a mere subcontractor like you even here? Do you realize how important today's party is?
Hazel, fed up with Bob's arrogant attitude, confronted him head-on.
Excuse me, who do you think you are? Today's party is to celebrate the hard work of the employees, not for you to act all high and mighty.
So Hazel, who despises dishonesty, Bob, who does nothing but make mistakes, must have been an irritating sight. Trying to calm down Hazel, who was on the verge of exploding, sent shivers down my spine. Despite the situation, Bob continued his arrogant demeanor, looking down on us.
Just the empty talk of people who've only done menial work. You and your wife are out of place here. It'd be better for you to leave for your own good.
After downing his glass in one gulp, Bob, with a smirk, handed it to me as if ordering me to clean up. What's this?
You're clueless, huh? It's my kindness to give you a job for today since you're so useless.
Hazel, furious at Bob's remarks, brushed aside my restraining arm and grabbed him by the collar. In this hopeless situation, all I could do was stand there, knees trembling in despair. I fought Hazel, driven by anger, was about to land a heavy blow on Bob's face, and hurried to stop her. But in the next moment, Hazel pulled a brown envelope used at the company from her handbag and thrust it towards Bob's face instead of her fist.
Call the president. I'm terminating contracts with all 70 subsidiary companies.
Hazel spoke unexpectedly calmly, but her face was as furious as if she were wearing a demonic mask. After forcefully pushing away Bob, who she had grabbed by the chest, Hazel pulled me by the arm and headed outside. Next to Hazel, taking deep breaths outside, I called the person who had invited me to today's anniversary party. Tom, sorry, but we've run into a bit of trouble and have to head back urgently.
Is that so? I don't know what happened, but that's really too bad. I was hoping we could catch up after such a long time.
I'm really sorry, especially on such an important day. The one expressing regret over the phone was my friend, Tom Hanks. Tom is an important figure in my life, a best friend since our school days, with whom I've shared various experiences. I knew Tom was also planning to attend today's anniversary party. However, it was inevitable. Just Bob's presence was enough to make Hazel's anger boil over instantly like a rapid water heater. The next morning, before the employees even arrived, Bob, looking frantic, suddenly barged into my company.
I'm terribly sorry for what happened.
Seeing an unexpected apology out of the blue was a first in my life, and I was so shocked that I was left speechless, frozen in place. Next to me, Hazel, who had been watching, spit out her coffee and burst into a fit of laughter.
What is that? Don't make me laugh so early in the morning. I'm laughing so hard it hurts.
While Hazel was laughing her heart out, I, bewildered by Bob's bizarre actions, was taken aback and couldn't grasp what was happening. What in the world is going on here?
That is...
While apologizing with his face down, Bob started to explain what had happened after we left yesterday. His words, shaky and tearful, were hard to catch. But it seemed that right after driving us away, Bob was nearly fired on the spot by the furious new president. Did you, by any chance, give yesterday's envelope to the new president?
Yes. I didn't realize that the contents of that envelope were so crucial to the company.
As Bob remained frozen on his knees on the floor, Hazel began to explain the nature of our business. Originally, the founder of the construction company Bob worked for was an employee of this subcontracting company started by Hazel's grandfather. Because of this long-standing relationship, my company has been taking on almost all of the necessary tasks for the construction company's projects as a prime contractor. When the construction company was just starting, it was able to continue operations smoothly thanks to Hazel's grandfather, who, as a subcontractor, took on the complicated associated construction work for a wide range of jobs, from private sector requests to public projects. Over these 30 years, as the backbone of that construction company, we have continued to take on even the somewhat troublesome projects as a subcontractor. When Bob, learning for the first time of our true standing, looked up, his face was twisted in shock, going beyond pale to completely white. To Bob, who seemed to be fading away from this world, Hazel delivered the final blow with a single remark.
By the way, the new president, Tom, he's my husband's best friend.
What? Really?
Trembling and fearful, Bob looked at me as I gave a small nod. Tom and I go way back. He's what you'd call a best friend. We came to the party yesterday to celebrate Tom's new presidency. Actually, he was the one who sent the invitation. Tom and I had been close since our school days and joined the same company as adults. The reason I was able to push myself to excel, competing as rivals with fellow new hires, was because my counterpart was Tom. I still remember those times as fun and meaningful. I never expected that the company Tom chose when he changed jobs through career fair would be this construction company. After I took over Hazel's company, Tom piled up many achievements and, as a result, was promoted to the new president.
So Tom, our president, is...
Seemingly realizing something, Bob slumped deeply, looking as if his soul had left his body, while Hazel was still ruling with laughter. Bob was sinking into despair like he was about to turn into ashes. Amid this chaos, Tom unexpectedly showed up. He had heard about Bob's meltdown and came over, looking surprised and troubled at the sight of Bob cowering on the floor. With a small sigh, he patted my shoulder and gave a troubled smile.
It's been a while. Never thought we'd meet again under these circumstances.
Tom.
Bob, fearfully turning his face towards Tom, then saw Tom's expression suddenly stiffen, his brows furrowing deeply as he glared sharply at Bob. Trembling with fear, Bob averted his gaze, sitting rigidly on the floor, lost for words.
Ray, I'm really sorry about all this. I've heard about what happened. Hazel, too, you've been trouble.
Honestly, it was a huge hassle. But well, I got a good laugh out of it this morning, so I guess I'm over it now.
Hazel, looking relieved, smiled at Tom.
Speaking of which, I heard Bob admires someone.
Yes, but I haven't met him yet.
It's someone you know very well.
I didn't understand what Tom was implying, but it was clear Bob was utterly confused.
He's the kind of person who leaves a legend behind during his college years. I can't think of who it might be, though.
Tom sighed softly and pointed at me.
The person you admire is actually him.
What? Huh? What?
Bob had occasionally talked about someone he admired, but I, not paying much attention, had completely forgotten about it. This person had started a business during college, received requests from many companies for sales and corporate strategies, and made astonishing profits. His name became famous on its own, and before he knew it, he's become known as a legendary figure not only among current students, but also among alumni who graduated before him. Simply put, I was that person during my college years. However, I believe these achievements wouldn't have been possible without the help of Norman, the former sales director of the prime contractor before Bob. That's why I didn't talk about it much myself. Yet, despite it being 10 years since I graduated, Bob had heard some buzz and seemed to have developed an admiration for me. But having heard the name before, Bob didn't realize it was me because my last name had changed when I got married and became a son-in-law.
Is that really true?
Well, yes, it is. Upon learning my true identity, Bob suddenly started crying and extended his hand for a handshake. Seeing him like this, Hazel, for some reason, was smugly grinning. A stunned Bob stared at me, forgetting to blink, feeling a chill down my spine from his gaze. I was creeped out. What is it?
No, just. You and Tom are really close, huh?
Well, yeah. He and I are like comrades in arms.
Tom laughed playfully, and Bob nodded slightly, though he seemed unconvinced, tilting his head. The term comrades in arms must have been confusing for him. I added a little to Tom's story. Tom and I were not only old friends, but he also supported me in the business, which eventually led to me being considered a legendary figure. My achievements are inseparable from Tom's presence. It was embarrassing to say it myself, but Tom is more than just a precious friend to me.
Well, that's the gist of it. Simply put, I've been the storyteller of his feats, watching from the best seat in the house.
It's not just that, right? I don't know anyone as capable as Tom.
When it comes to my stories, Hazel tends to boast as if they were her own. Even Hazel seemed to respect Tom greatly, talking proudly as if it was about herself.
After all, you were the consultant for that prime contractor company, weren't you?
Wait, could it be? The person who's been the key player in turning around the company, as I've heard through the grapevine.
I think that was me. After taking over Hazel's company and doubling its profits, recognized for my achievements, I was also managing the consulting for the prime contractor company, recommended by Norman. Knowing Tom was already making strides as an executive at the prime contractor company, I worked with him, reminiscing about our college days, and we successfully tripled the company's scale. And with Tom's presidency, it was decided that my company would take over the subcontracting for all 70 group companies, though it meant working with subcontractors and affiliated businesses. Our profits were incomparable to before. Having heard my story, Bob seemed to understand, dropping his shoulders and staring off into the distance as if lost in thought. As a result, Bob ended up making enemies not only of me, but also of Hazel, sitting as the chairman of the subcontracting company. Consequently, Bob, far from just losing his managerial position, could no longer work at the company and was put on immediate suspension, with his termination decided after a holding period. Feeling sorry for Bob, who was completely outmatched, I decided to show a bit of mercy by introducing him to a subcontracting company benefiting from our recent business expansion. This company, too, was facing a labor shortage and was thrilled to acquire Bob as a workforce. Managing the 70 companies in our group was challenging, but within a year, the business began to yield results. Just as the new ventures were taking off smoothly, Bob unexpectedly showed up at my company.
It's been a while. Thanks for everything.
Bob, now accustomed to working both in sales and on site as a subcontractor, had completely changed from his former arrogant demeanor to being surprisingly humble. His flattering sales pitch, born out of his humble approach, seemed to be well received, and according to the president of the subcontracting company, Bob's exceptional sales skills were significantly contributing to the company. After Tom and I had successfully stabilized the group business, I received a call from Norman, inviting me out for a meal. Out of the blue and serious, he made an unexpected proposal.
I'm thinking of starting something new. How about joining me?
I was delighted by the invitation from Norman, whom I respected, and quickly joined the new venture. However, when he mentioned needing a young salesman, Bob's face popped into my mind. Knowing it's a long shot, I reached out to the subcontracting company, and they happily agreed to let him go, as a new recruit had rapidly improved under Bob's training.
Can I really work with you, Ray?
Bob asked, tears of joy in his eyes. As we shook hands firmly, there's a saying about the right person for the right place, and it seems Bob shines brightest beside those he admires. Of course, with Norman, and thanks to Bob's efforts, the new venture quickly took off, and orders kept increasing smoothly. Bob's gaze, sparkling with admiration, felt dazzling, but it reminded me that I must also strive to live up to his expectations. Leading people is not easy, but thanks to Bob, I've been made to think about how others perceive me, and it feels like I've grown a bit more.
My home is a single-parent family. Right after I was born, my dad passed away due to illness. My mom, struggling alone, raised me and my older brother. When I was little, we were strapped for cash, and Mom worked from dawn till late at night.
I'm sorry for always making you feel lonely.
It's okay. I have my brother with me.
People often said I must have been lonely without Mom around, but I never felt that way because my brother was there. My brother, Bob, being quite a bit older, always took good care of me.
Sorry for always being a burden.
It's all right. I actually enjoy doing the chores.
When Mom wasn't around, he'd cook simple meals and eagerly did the housework, which I think was a big help to Mom.
Bob, teach me how to do it. Oh, you want to start doing chores too. Just be careful not to hurt yourself.
Growing up watching my brother, I naturally started helping around the house to be of use to him and our mom.
If you do it this way, it's more efficient and you'll get better at it. That's true. You're really amazing, Bob. Of course. I'm your big brother, after all.
I wasn't good at first, but with my brother's guidance, I quickly improved. My brother could do anything at home, and at school, he was not only good at his studies, but also had many friends. He's been my role model since I was little.
Aren't you going to hang out today? I need to make dinner because Mom will be home late. Man, you always have it tough. I'm really enjoying it myself. Wanna come over for dinner? Yeah, I'll be there.
Our house was always lively, often visited by my brother's classmates. My brother, who could do and teach everything, was like a father figure to me. By the time I graduated high school, he had already started working to support our family.
You should go to college. I'll pay for it with my money.
But I was thinking of working to help support the family too.
Don't be silly. These days, a guy needs a college degree to make good money.
I wanted to work after high school to avoid burdening my mom and brother. However, due to my brother's strong insistence, I decided to go to college. Thinking about going to college because of my brother made me focus on my studies, and I ended up getting into a pretty decent college. I wanted to get a part-time job, but my brother gently discouraged it.
Well, considering your future work, a part-time job is okay, but prioritize your studies and don't overdo it.
So, I only worked on my days off. Thanks to that, I could focus on my studies and enjoyed a fulfilling student life. As part of my college experience, I joined a club I was invited to by a friend, leading to a fateful encounter.
Hey, do you want to hang out today?
I'd be happy to if you're okay with me. The person who approached me was Mandy, a senior 3 years my elder. We started hanging out more frequently. Eventually, after her persistent pursuit, we started dating.
You finally got a girlfriend.
When I talked about her, my brother had a look that seemed a mix of frustration and loneliness.
It's your birthday today, right? Here, take this.
What? I can't accept something this fancy.
Don't be silly. It's your birthday, so it's fine. Besides, I want to give it to you, so no holding back.
She was very generous, giving me luxurious gifts and treating me to fancy meals for my birthday. I tried to give something back, but I ended up feeling bad because she always paid more.
It's okay, my family is wealthy. I get plenty of allowance.
She was born into a family of bankers, growing up in a privileged environment. Wow, that's so different from my life.
It's a single-parent family, so it can't be helped. I would be the same if I were born in that situation.
She never looked down on my family's situation after hearing about it. I guess that's one reason why I fell in love with her.
I got a job offer from a bank executive position.
That's amazing. Congratulations. She was beaming with pride. Even after she started working, we continued our relationship. The more time we spent together, the stronger my desire to support her grew. I'm going to propose to her after I graduate from college.
Really? Man, you're stepping up. Go for it.
My brother was surprised but supportive when I talked to him about it. I graduated from college and got a job at a small to medium-sized company. Getting used to the work, I saved my first paycheck to buy a ring and prepared everything. I even booked a fancy restaurant for our date, which was unusual for me.
This is a wonderful place. I'm so happy.
Well, once in a while, right? She was thrilled about the date I arranged in such a nice setting. Feeling confident about the mood, I took out the ring I had prepared. Will you marry me? My heartfelt proposal was embarrassingly shy, as I couldn't even look at her properly. While I was still looking down with my finger extended, the weight of the ring disappeared from my hand.
Thank you. I also want to be with you forever.
Really? Getting the okay from her, I was over the moon. We then discussed our future and confirmed our intentions for each other. At least, that was the plan. I proposed to her and got the okay.
Well, that's great. Congratulations.
I'm going to visit her family soon.
Then you gotta look sharp in a suit.
My brother and I went out to pick a suit. According to him, a suit is a man's battle gear, and there's no room for compromise. Taking his advice, I bought a suit that seemed appropriate. The days leading up to the visit were nerve-wracking. Does this look weird?
There's no way the suit I picked out looks weird. You'll be fine.
Right, okay, I'm off to meet her family.
All right, go for it.
Encouraged by my brother, I headed to her parents' house. I bought cakes from the neighboring town as a hostess gift, as I heard her parents love them. Her family home was a mansion like I'd only seen on TV. With trembling hands, I rang the doorbell of the impressive house, and she came out to greet me.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to see you.
Welcome to our home.
Her parents were very welcoming, and I felt relieved compared to the scary image I had in mind.
So, you met our daughter at a college club, didn't you?
Yes, she's been very kind to me.
Oh, I heard she really went after you.
Mom, stop it. You're embarrassing me.
The conversation with her parents flowed more easily than I expected. However, when the topic shifted to my family, the atmosphere changed abruptly.
So what about your parents? What do they do?
Well, my father passed away early, and my mom used to work day and night. At that moment, her mother looked very surprised.
Oh dear, you're from a single-parent family.
Her somewhat pointed remark made me feel a bit uneasy. I could sense a negative impression forming about my family background. I hurriedly continued, trying to explain. Yes, that's right, but my brother stepped in as a father figure. I felt the atmosphere freeze at my words. Looking at her mother, her smile was gone, replaced with a cold gaze directed at me.
If it's a single-parent family, then it's a no-go.
Huh? I was momentarily stunned, emitting a foolish sound.
That's right. Single-parent families are not acceptable.
Why? Her father nodded in agreement with her mother's words.
Well, I guess it's a no-go then.
She sighed, looking at her parents. I was dumbfounded by her reaction. Her appearance was far from what it was when I proposed. The woman who said she wanted to be with me forever was nowhere to be seen. Is there a problem with being from a single-parent family?
For any reason, the upbringing in a single-parent family is not trustworthy. It would be troublesome if they asked us for money. In banking, trust is everything. Avoiding relationships with people we can trust is also important.
Her father spoke harshly, frowning. His gaze was scornfully fixed on me. Did he think I approached her because my family was in financial trouble?
Just plain is fine, but if you're considering marriage, think again. A poor family where the mother works night shifts will have a different lifestyle, and eventually, the difference in values will lead to a breakup.
Her mother's remark about just playing made my head spin. Did she say she wanted to be with me just for fun? I began to feel distrust towards her.
Sorry, but if my parents don't approve, I can't really think about marriage. Could you go home today?
She said this without any hint of guilt or opposition to her parents. Why? You've known all along that I come from a single-parent family. That shouldn't be a reason to give up on marriage. Her parents remained silent. The scene before me was clear. Once her parents disapproved, I was no longer needed. Being looked down upon just for being from a single-parent family, and even belittled about our lifestyle, infuriated me. All right, I'll leave. Thanks for having me. The girl who had warmly welcomed me didn't even see me out. I left her house as if fleeing, never looking back. On the way home, I gritted my teeth in frustration. Though I didn't want to shed a tear, they flowed contrary to my wishes. Not wanting to worry my family, I hid my tears as I returned home.
Welcome back. How did it go?
Sensing my return, my mom asked with bright eyes, but I didn't know how to respond. Well. Unable to tell her that the engagement was broken off due to our single-parent status, I evaded the question and retreated to my room. My mom looked puzzled but didn't follow after me.
What happened?
Noticing something was off, my brother followed me to my room and asked. When questioned by my brother, my desire to talk to someone overcame me, and I told him everything that happened today. The engagement was called off because we're from a single-parent family.
What?
The father said it would be troublesome if we asked him for money.
Huh?
The mother said it's fine to date, but marriage is out of the question.
That's awful. What about your girlfriend?
She said it's impossible without her parents' approval.
What's that supposed to mean?
My brother cursed at everything I told him. I felt a bit relieved by that.
Regardless of her parents' views, it was right to break up with a girl who can have her own opinion.
Yell. My brother paused thoughtfully.
Which bank does her father work for?
I told my brother the name of the bank she had mentioned.
Okay, I'm going to make a phone call.
His voice was low and cold. A few days later, I unexpectedly received a call from her. Tentatively answering the phone, I heard her father's voice.
Hey, what have you done?
Why so sudden? I thought we were done with your impoverished family. Is there a problem?
Don't play dumb. How come I was suddenly fired? What did you do?
Well, I did mention to my family about the terrible discrimination I faced when I went to propose. Then my brother and his contacts said they couldn't trust a bank with such people working there, and they might have moved their deposits elsewhere. I heard it was about $100 million. Well, banks deal with people's money based on trust, so it can't be helped, right? The father was speechless at my words. In fact, my brother had started a business when he was young and had been successful. Now he runs a fairly large company. Her father worked at the biggest bank in our area. It seems my brother had a significant amount of dealings and investments with that bank. After hearing my story, my brother immediately called the bank and asked to speak with the branch manager. The manager seemed panicked, but my brother continued in a calm tone.
We will cease our transactions with your bank. A member of your executive team has deeply hurt our family. We will visit later to discuss this in detail.
And that's the current situation. I was surprised by my brother's quick action, but I never expected her father would be fired.
I'm sorry. I apologize for all the disrespect. Of course, we approve of the marriage. Please, just.
Her father suddenly changed his tone, apologizing, but an apology from him couldn't reverse the firing. I could hear his repeated apologies over the phone, but then the voice changed to hers.
I'm sorry, my parents said such things, but I haven't given up on marrying you. Can we start over?
By then, my feelings for her had completely cooled off. I knew these words weren't sincere. If she truly felt grateful, she would have stood up for me then. Sorry, but I don't want to have anything to do with people who disrespect my family.
I didn't disrespect you. It was all my dad and mom. I can even cut ties with them.
It's a waste to lose parents like that. You won't live as luxuriously as before, but that's what you deserve, huh?
After all I've done for you, you're the worst. Give everything back.
That was a gift from you, right? Plus, I threw everything away when we broke up. She's yelling and screaming in my ear. The sound was grating on my ears. Just before I unilaterally hung up, I heard her father's voice.
This is your fault.
Who he was blaming was anyone's guess. I hung up and blocked her number. No more contact from her after that. I visited her bank once, but she was nowhere to be seen. Maybe the rumors had affected her too. Months later, when I passed by her house, a for sale sign stood in front of the mansion. I wondered how much they had spent to now be unable to maintain it. No more ties, no way to know, so no interest now. Being judged superficially on family and wealth, they got what they deserved.
Ha, the house is up for sale. Hilarious, they got what was coming to them. I did aim for it, though.
My brother laughed. I could never outdo him. He's always had a network of information, probably knows what's up with her now.
Your ex-girlfriend, she's working at a diner now. Wanna check it out?
Oh, sure, let's order something expensive. Planning mischief against the ex-girlfriend, we shared a wicked smile. My brother had always been my savior since childhood, and this time was no different. I'm forever indebted to him. If he ever faces trouble, I'll go to any lengths to protect him. And I vowed to become a man who could support my brother, even a little.
My name is John. I'm 43 years old. I'm the head of the sales department. My team is full of talented people, and I feel blessed to work with them every day. I have a father who is a businessman, and I work hard every day to someday catch up to him. Despite these fulfilling days, there's one thing that bothers me. It's the senior management. The executives are casting a dark shadow over this company. Among them, Alice is particularly terrible. All she thinks about is how to make easy money until retirement. She doesn't care about what happens after that. So even if I propose organizational reforms that might cause some pain in the short term, they are quickly rejected. Moreover, she casually crushes any new projects my team brings up, citing costs. No matter how much I negotiate with Alice, she just won't take me seriously. As an executive, Alice has a lot of decision-making power, and nothing I say seems to change that. And it's not just Alice. The other executives are all the same. They only care about their own life after retirement, not the future of the company or the younger employees. Recently, A contract with a business partner was canceled without my consent. I protested fiercely at that time. However, Alice gave some nonsensical reason for canceling the contract, saying it was pointless. It was an important client for our company, but Alice just didn't get it. Yet, she has the nerve to call me, the department head, and berate me for poor sales performance. She's just a terrible person. But still, we kept working hard for the company. Then, something happened. One day, I was summoned by Alice. Reluctantly, I headed to the meeting room. Alice was there waiting. Did you want to see me?
Yes, I have something I need to tell you.
Okay.
Our company is going to be sold.
Oh yeah.
You're not surprised.
There have been rumors about it for a while. In the midst of ongoing financial losses, there had always been talk that our company might be sold. So I wasn't surprised. The issue was what came next.
Do you understand what caused this situation?
It's your fault. I swallowed my words. What is it?
It's the fault of your sales department. If you had done your job properly, this wouldn't have happened.
With all due respect, we did everything we could. If you hadn't arbitrarily canceled contracts with our clients, this might not have happened, right? Alice raised an eyebrow.
What? Are you saying it's my fault?
If that's how it sounds, then maybe it is. I replied, suppressing my emotions as much as possible.
You always talk back.
Alice smirked.
But you know, the company's shares were all bought by the Smith Group, led by President Michael Smith.
The Smith Group runs a nationwide chain of diners and bars, well known across the country.
So this Smith Group buying us out means the company will get a fresh start.
That's good to hear.
But you know, just changing the shareholders won't be enough. The company itself needs to change.
Alice snorted in dissatisfaction.
What? You're so slow on the uptake.
What are you trying to say?
That's why the company needs a rebirth. We should make significant changes to many things.
I see that could be true. I nodded.
That's why you're fired. We don't need a high school graduate who can't cut it in our company.
I scratched my head. I agree that renewal is necessary, but how does that lead to me getting fired?
There's nothing strange about it. The sales department is to blame for our financial troubles. It's only natural for the head of that department to take responsibility.
Alice laughed. I'm saying the sales department isn't at fault.
That's for us to decide. You don't have the right to argue. Plus, now that the Smith Group, a big company, has become a shareholder, do you think they want a high school grad leading the sales department?
I've been promoted because of my performance, not my education.
Your hiring was odd too. I heard you came from abroad, but didn't you bypass the usual recruitment process?
That's irrelevant. It happened over 20 years ago. I was evasive.
Well, it doesn't matter. You're fired anyway. Might as well change up the sales department too. They're all too outspoken against me.
I glared at Alice. So, anyone who doesn't follow your line gets fired.
It's for the good of the company.
I turned my back on Alice. I see. I understand your method now. I left the meeting room. The next day, the shareholders' meeting was held. The CEO, Bob, was there, and Alice was slightly nervous. Then the new shareholder, Michael Smith, appeared. Alice immediately tried to ingratiate herself with him.
Thank you for coming despite your busy schedule. And on behalf of our company, I'd like to express our gratitude for the acquisition.
Michael nodded sternly.
Thank you.
But he quickly turned to Bob.
Shall we start the shareholders meeting then?
Bob immediately announced the start of the meeting. However, Michael was the only real shareholder. The rest were company directors. Michael stood up.
Firstly, I have something to say. As I own all the shares, I have the power to appoint or dismiss the company's directors. And now, I will dismiss all the directors here.
Everyone was stunned by the announcement. Bob was the only one who quietly looked down.
The main reason for this is to hold someone accountable for the company's financial losses. My investigation revealed that these losses were due to the negligence of the executives.
He paused, taking a sip of his coffee.
I plan to look for new executives through discussions, but there is one person whose appointment is already decided. It's my son.
Then the door opened. Alice was speechless at the sight of the person who entered.
I have decided to appoint John, the head of the sales department, as an executive, and eventually, he will become the CEO of this company.
Alice quickly interjected.
Wait, please. John being Michael's son. I can't believe it.
Michael glared at her.
Why is that? Or do you think I would lie about such a thing?
Alice stumbled over her words. It was unthinkable that such a nonsensical lie would be told.
But John is a high school graduate, right? And why would he be in this company instead of his father's?
I let out a sigh. Let me explain. I am indeed Michael's son. As for being a high school graduate, I went abroad right after high school to work and study foreign languages and business management.
What?
I thought formal education was important, but I wanted to catch up to my father and learn business abroad as soon as possible. As I explained, Michael smiled proudly.
He's got the same gutsy drive as me. I've never cared much for formal education, so I supported him. I only gave him the initial travel and living expenses. He earned the rest on his own.
And about the company, I could have worked under my father's corporation, but I wanted to see how my skills would fare on my own. Being the CEO's son might make people tread lightly around me. I thought it would be better to work somewhere no one knew me. After my explanation, Alice seemed to understand, but she still had objections.
Even so, appointing someone just because he's your son is wrong. This is not how a healthy business should operate.
Michael was unfazed by her rebuttal.
Who said anything about appointing him just because he's my son? We thoroughly investigated your company before the acquisition and concluded that John is the right person to be an executive right away. Being my son has nothing to do with it.
But why John? The sales department is crucial for the company's revenue. It's their malfunctioning that led to the financial losses.
My findings show that the sales department has been doing great work. They've led difficult projects to success and worked tirelessly to forge new business relations.
Alice scoffed.
If hard work alone promoted people, everyone would be advancing. Results are what matter.
Indeed, you make a good point.
Of course.
However, achieving results seems to be a Herculean task here.
What do you mean?
Well, no matter how many new contracts the sales team secures, they get arbitrarily canceled, or their innovative projects get squashed.
At Michael's words, Alice reacted.
That must be what John told you, right? But that's a blatant lie. He's just shifting the blame to us. None of that ever happened.
Alice vehemently denied the accusations.
Is that so? A blatant lie, you say?
Yes, that's right.
I never heard this story from John.
Ha, then who told you that?
I found out from various people, like the presidents of companies whose contracts were suddenly canceled.
Michael sighed regretfully.
How many times must I say I don't play favorites just because he's my son before you'll trust me?
Well, that's...
I did a thorough investigation. Obviously, I also looked into external companies. The partners were very confused when you executives abruptly canceled contracts with them. Such reputation spread quickly in this industry. Did you not realize that this was tarnishing the company's image?
Alice and the other executives looked down. Michael shook his head in dismay.
How could the company improve when you selectively break contracts with other companies to suit your own convenience?
I glared at the executives. All they care about is making easy money until retirement, indifferent to the future of this company. Alice glared back.
We have always acted and made decisions with the company's best interests in mind. There might be some responsibility for the lack of results, but dismissal is too much.
Alice pleaded for leniency, but Michael's stance was firm.
That's not the case. I knew about this situation even before conducting the investigation.
How could that be? You must have heard it from John, right?
No. I got the information from a friend of mine, the president of this company, Bob.
All the executives turned their gaze to Bob. Bob nodded slightly.
It's true. I've been consulting with him for a while, and thinking he would be the right person, I sold all the shares.
Bob, you betrayed us.
Alice stared at Bob.
This betrayal is outrageous. Weren't we all comrades working for the company?
I thought we were comrades, but you all changed.
Bob said sadly.
Bob lamented how the executives changed after the company's profits increased and they started earning more.
Bob nodded again.
He hoped things would go back to how they were, but instead, it got worse, leading him to decide on selling the company. Dismissing all the executives was also his wish.
Naturally, Alice was vehement.
Don't joke with us. Why are we the only ones to blame? You are part of this too. You're just trying to save yourself with the help of a friend.
That's not true. Of course, I plan to step down eventually, but until a new CEO is decided, I need to stay. I fully support John becoming the CEO. He is very capable, but he can't become CEO immediately. Until then, I plan to remain as CEO.
The reason I chose this company is that Bob was a friend of my father. I trusted him and joined the company. Bob was good, but I never imagined the directors would be so corrupt. I said it firmly, and Alice glared at me.
This is unacceptable.
Why? As the sole shareholder. I have the right to dismiss and appoint directors.
Even if it's legal, the employees won't be happy about it. No matter how reasonable the reasons are, they will conclude that you just wanted your son to be a director and will react against it. Then the company will truly fall apart.
Alice's words were echoed by the other directors.
At least let us stay on board and change the method to appoint John as a director.
Alice seemed pleased with her plausible argument. However, I counted. Don't worry about that. No one wants you to remain as directors.
What? What are you talking about? Don't make things up.
I'm not making anything up. I've been conducting interviews with the employees of this company for months. At my explanation, Alice's face contorted.
Interviews? What's that?
There have been rumors for months about the company being acquired, so I asked what changes the employees wanted to see after the acquisition. Remarkably, over 70% of them wanted a renewal of the directorship. I showed the documents to Alice. Seeing the documents, Alice became furious.
Don't joke with me. This could easily be fabricated. This is no reference at all.
I see. That's certainly a possibility. I nodded. How about we conduct a company-wide survey now? The information I gathered is a few months old and might be outdated. Perhaps now, more than 80% might be in favor of renewal. All the directors looked pale. Michael nodded happily.
That makes sense. It's fair to check right now to get everyone on board.
But Alice quickly retorted.
Wait. Such a survey lacks legitimacy in decision-making.
How so?
We weren't chosen by a popularity contest. We were appointed as directors because we delivered results.
Indeed, that's true.
Michael nodded.
Such surveys tend to become popularity contests. We have made unpopular decisions thinking about the company's best interest.
Well, there's certainly a chance it could turn into a popularity vote.
Exactly. And if we all get dismissed, it will open up director positions. There will be no shortage of people who support our dismissal to grab that chance. Therefore, I oppose conducting such a survey.
That's a valid point.
Then Michael looked at me.
So, the survey seems inappropriate as reference material. What do you think?
Yes, I guess there's no helping it. I nodded in agreement.
Thank you. Let's discuss the future management policies of the company.
No, that will happen after your dismissal.
Michael cut Alice off sharply.
But we just established that the survey is invalid.
Just because the survey is invalid doesn't mean your dismissal is off the table.
Alice spoke irritably.
Why do we have to be dismissed?
I've said it multiple times. It's because of your negligent management.
But that's just based on the numbers. We have been trying to improve the company in our way.
I see. For the company, huh?
Michael placed a photo on the desk. Looking at it, the directors were at a loss for words.
This is a photo of you, Alice, being entertained by a sales representative from a certain company, and then suddenly signing a contract with them. Meanwhile, forcefully canceling contracts with their competitors that our sales department secured. Is this a coincidence?
No one dared to answer Michael's question. I hadn't even imagined such things were happening behind the scenes. So it made me furious.
By the way, this photo happens to be of Alice being entertained, but I have photos of the other directors as well.
The directors looked even more grim.
Can you still say you were acting for the company? To me, it looks like you were using the company to reap benefits for yourselves.
Well, this was, just a social drinking event.
Alice fumbled for an excuse.
I see. Then what about this?
Michael showed another photo. It clearly showed Alice receiving money.
Do you normally get paid for attending a drinking party? I've never heard of such a thing.
Facing Michael's questioning, Alice looked down.
What you did was a betrayal of the company. If I find that this caused any damage, all of you will have to compensate for it.
Unable to hold back, I blurted out, "Please leave this company immediately. We need to turn around its management, and we don't have time to talk here." With my stern command, the directors dejectedly left the meeting room.
Now comes the hard part. I'll help as much as I can, but it's up to you guys.
I understand, Dad. I'll turn this company around. Afterward, Alice was forced out of the company and began looking for a new job. However, no one wanted to hire her because her bad reputation had spread among similar companies. She was also forced to pay for the damages. Eventually, Alice moved to the countryside and started living a part-time job lifestyle. She seems to be enduring it, still fed up with her rural life. On the other hand, as a director, I started reforming the company. With the old directors gone, the company's management quickly got back on track. Later, I became the president. I am still working hard every day to become a leader like my father.
A dropout like you, a banker.
At my 20-year high school reunion, a classmate, now a banker at a major bank, looked down on me, who had only a high school diploma. He graduated from a top-tier university and came from a very wealthy family, always being flashy even during our school days. In contrast, I was just a low-key member of the computer club, so it's no wonder he mocked me. If he was in the spotlight, I was like a mushroom in the shade.
Which bottom-tier bank are you at?
The other classmates laughed along with him. Suddenly, a classroom scene flashed through my mind. He always teased me relentlessly, making me the butt of jokes. It seems his character remains rotten, no matter how prestigious the bank he works at.
Come to my bank sometime. Let's exchange business cards.
Satisfied with tormenting me, he laughed heartily and started looking for another target. Should I really go greet him at his place? I can easily imagine him turning pale. But he doesn't know that. My name is Michael Thompson. I work from home. This work arrangement only came into place a few years ago. Before that, I was going to the office like everyone else. I've always been bad at socializing, so I begged the CEO to set up a system that would allow me to avoid interacting with people as much as possible. As a result, the remote work system was surprisingly well received. It led to providing our remote work system to other companies, and the unexpected progress made the CEO very pleased.
Well, it's like pennies from heaven. I never thought our performance would improve this way.
The CEO said, sitting in a grand chair, fanning himself and smiling. It's all thanks to you agreeing to it, sir.
We've been getting thanks from the employees who switched to remote work. One from accounting even moved near the beach. It's amazing how everything can be done with just a computer nowadays. It's a bit lonely not seeing each other's faces, but if we keep clinging to the old ways, we'll just fall behind.
After the long talk with the CEO, I went to a cafe. I ordered a huge parfait to relieve stress. Even if it's just for a few minutes, the monthly meeting with the CEO can be quite draining. Why am I so uncomfortable around people? It's probably because of my high school classmate, James Parker. James's family was wealthy, and in high school, he was the popular guy, part of the upper social echelon. As for me, I'm not the standout type, nor do I have any particular talents. So, I secretly admired someone like James, and also felt inferior to him. Somehow, James heard about it, and one day said to me,
"You, a bottom feeder, admire me? A dropout like you."
The loud laughter of James and his entourage still haunts me to this day. Since then, I felt looked down upon by everyone around. So, I immediately threw the invitation card for the high school reunion I found in the mailbox into the trash. What's the point of meeting now? I'd just be revisiting the many unpleasant memories and get hurt again by meeting those schoolmates. But is that really the right choice? I've been working hard since graduating from high school. I've failed, faced setbacks, and had days of groping through the dark tunnel endlessly. But now, I can somewhat take pride in my life. Recognized by the CEO, appreciated by the colleagues, I understand my own worth. Maybe now is the time to go, stand tall, and redeem the past. I was surprised at how much fighting spirit I had, looking at the invitation peeking out of the trash. I had always thought of myself as calm, detached, and the type to give up. The next day, after work, I went to buy a suit and dropped the slightly bent RSVP card in the mailbox. As I watched it safely drop into the mailbox, I was filled with a sense of exhilaration. My life is definitely heading in a good direction. The invitation to the reunion came at this time, surely as a way to settle the past I had contained. That's what I thought at the time. And then, on the day of the reunion, I opened the door with a bright feeling. There were faces I remembered without needing to ask names. Some classmates tilted their heads upon seeing me. I was a plain student, so it's understandable if they don't remember. After greeting everyone, it seemed that the past I was concerned about was trivial to others, not even worth remembering. The thin, invisible wall I felt back then didn't exist, and we could talk quite casually. Maybe it's proof that we've all grown up. Soon, there was a cheer near the entrance. Looking towards the lively voices, I saw a tall man standing out from the crowd. There was a person there who really gave off an intellectual vibe. It was definitely James. He noticed my gaze and greeted with a hey and a wave. The fact that he greeted me so casually, and that he didn't hesitate to say hello despite being surrounded by others, made me realize that the memories of the past might have been somewhat embellished in my mind, and maybe James was actually a nice guy. I even thought that my one-sided aversion might have twisted my memories. With a friendly smile, he made his way through the crowd and stood before me.
"Long time no see. Never thought you'd come."
Yo, I wanted to see everyone after so long. How have you been, James?
"Pretty good. What are you up to now? You didn't go to college, right?"
Standing before James, my heart was still racing, but I was moved to be able to converse as equals. I was talking to James, the once popular guy at the top of our high school social ladder. But that thought was short-lived. As soon as I mentioned the bank I work for, James smirked coldly and said,
"What? A dropout like you, working at a bank? Which bottom-tier bank is it? Don't lie, man."
His smiling face made me feel dizzy. It was just like old times. No, don't get it wrong. I work in IT at the bank, so I'm no match for you, James. A wave of shame washed over me. The fleeting dream turned into a nightmare, bearing its fangs.
Of course. I work at a very famous major bank, the Central Branch no less.
Oh, really? The bank he mentioned. It was ironically the same bank I work. The Central Branch might have a good location, but to the headquarters staff, a branch is just a branch.
What's with the smirk? Can only laugh to hide your shame. Huh. Must be a local bank then.
James, seeing my silence, assumed on his own that I worked at a local bank.
Listen, if you're just a pathetic bankside guy, better hide your background. It's embarrassing for us bankers, you know. Hey, come visit my office sometime. I'll give you a tour. We can even exchange business cards at the entrance if you like.
He patted my shoulder, looking pleased, and then left. James, it seems, hadn't changed at all. No, it felt like he had become even more accustomed to looking down on people than during our high school days. After the reunion, James contacted me several times. He was serious, persistently calling me to visit his bank.
It'll be fun, right? You're probably just bored anyway. Or is your pride getting in the way?
He probably intended to make a spectacle of me and laugh. Well then, I guess I'll just have to roll with it. Put my heart and soul into it. Lay everything on the line. All right. I'll come when it suits you, James. Next Tuesday works for me. That's fine.
I'm really looking forward to it.
James ended the call, clearly delighted with my response. I thought maybe someone had knocked some sense into him, but it seems no one stopped him. Rather, it's pitiful that a grown adult feels the need to look down on others to be satisfied. The moment for my retaliation was drawing nearer. And then, the day I was to meet James arrived. I wasn't nervous at all. I dressed in the expensive suit I had bought and tightened my tie. It's okay. You've always done well. I encouraged myself in front of the mirror. Be confident, it'll be okay. You've always been passionately committed. Upon arriving at the Central Branch, I unexpectedly encountered a significant figure at the entrance. It was the bank chairman, Steve. Accompanied by secretaries, he exuded a solemn atmosphere. Steve. As I called out, the chairman's face brightened slightly upon seeing me. He's always been fond of me, like a grandson, and I've revered him like a grandfather.
Is that you, Michael? What brings you here?
Actually, a classmate of mine works here. He wanted to show me around the company.
Well, that's a classmate with some nerve, calling you here.
The chairman is usually a friendly old man, but occasionally there's a sharp glint in his eyes, and I felt his unique, slightly intense aura, something only the chairman could emit. He's just a classmate. He seems to want to show off this impressive workplace. As I hastily explained, James arrived.
Hey, Michael. Oh, the bank chairman.
He immediately showed deep respect upon seeing the chairman.
I'm terribly sorry for the intrusion.
No, I was just passing by and decided to stop in. We didn't have an appointment.
It's scorching out here. Let's go inside.
James did a complete 180 in his attitude towards me and started buttering him up.
Hey, Michael. Greet the man. He's the top guy at our bank. Not someone folks from a local bank usually meet.
Hastily speaking to me, Steve looked puzzled and said,
Well, Michael, since when are you at a local bank?
Michael?
James furrowed his brow hearing the chairman call my name with warmth. Steve, James is mistaken. He thinks I work at a local bank. Well, he ended our conversation before I could explain.
Not listening to someone fully isn't good. James, was it? Please, get us two some coffee. Is there a room available?
How? Yes, I'll check right away.
James hurried back inside.
That's your classmate. Seems like a rather assertive person.
Yes, he's always been the central figure, unlike me. Responding that way, the chairman narrowed his eyes and said,
I like your humility, Michael. Your unassuming nature and treating everyone equally.
James returned hastily with the branch manager and ushered us into the manager's office. Sitting on the luxurious sofa, I sank deep into its softness. Taking a nap on such a plush sofa would surely be comfortable. By the way, James, I brought my business card. Remember, we promised at the reunion. At my words, James responded with an embarrassed yell. Let me introduce myself again. I'm Michael Thompson from headquarters.
From headquarters. Michael Thompson.
At my introduction, the branch manager tilted his head, and then he let slip. Feels like I've heard that somewhere before. Receiving my business card, James turned pale, whispering, headquarters.
Headquarters. But Michael didn't go to college.
That's right.
I graduated from a prestigious university. And I'm at a branch while a high school grad like you is at the headquarters. Impossible. There must be some mistake. Maybe connections, since you're close with the chairman.
Hearing James's words, the chairman nodded significantly and said,
Well, that's probably it. I despise arrogant people. That's why I specifically requested that such individuals not be placed at the headquarters.
After being sharply riveted by the chairman, James remained silent, looking down. Meanwhile, the branch manager and the chairman were chatting amiably. James, who once exuded authority in the classroom, now seemed utterly diminished. On the way back from the branch, the chairman handed me a charm from his pocket.
This was given to me by my grandfather when I joined the company. I want you to have it.
I can't accept such an important item. Besides, you have grandchildren close to my age.
No, if you hadn't offered me your umbrella that day, I would have given up on life long ago. Please, I want you to have it.
It was the day before my job interview. In a sudden downpour, I met a man standing drenched in the rain, utterly desolate. He had just told that his wife was diagnosed with cancer with only 6 months to live, and he looked completely worn out, like he was about to collapse any minute. That's why I couldn't help but offer my umbrella. Afterward, we entered a nearby cafe and continued with light conversation until the rain stopped.
It had been a while since I had someone who saw me just as a person, not knowing anything about me.
Until I entered the final interview room, I didn't know that the man I had talked to was the chairman. It was like a storybook, a fateful encounter. I was happy and grateful that he treasured our connection so much. Though the IT department was expanding and education didn't matter in the job listing, I thought it impossible to get into a major bank with just a high school diploma, and my job hunt felt like a gamble. During the interview, the interviewers seemed only interested in candidates from prestigious universities, and I felt ignored. So when I received the hiring notice, I almost called HR to confirm it wasn't a mistake. My grandfather always taught me to live honestly. He said if you ever feel lost, follow your heart, because it's always straight and true, advising never to choose a path that felt wrong. That's why I offered the umbrella. I felt something off about the chairman's condition. My heart was urging me to talk to him. I never imagined it would lead my life in such a way. I think I'll visit my grandfather's grave after a long time. Thanks to him, I became a better person. I just want to say, surely there will be times ahead when I hit a wall, feel down, blame myself, and wander in dark tunnels. But I know that no night lasts forever, no matter how long the tunnel. The sun shines in every place, no matter where you are. So no matter what comes, I will steadfastly trust in myself. and wait for the dawn. For those who gave strength to the one called a dropout, I must live my life fully and repay their kindness. I've decided to live without being held